Thanks for joining me tonight. Really appreciate you being here on a Friday evening to talk about validating your idea in the Nittany AI Challenge. This is going to be a relatively quick webinar. This is only going to be a half an hour, but it is probably one of the most important webinars that I can possibly hold related to kind of getting ahead in the Nittany AI Challenge and setting yourself up to compete successfully against the other teams that are within the challenge. And in talking with teams in the past, one of the things that has come out again and again is that the knowledge of how to validate your idea early on was simply something that many teams were lacking. And unfortunately, they came to the realization that they had to validate their ideas still and work through it a little later in the competition than they would have liked. So we're trying to talk about this early on so you can be prepared to compete well and not be surprised by this and try to do both development and idea validation at the same time. So to start off, my name is Brad Zdenek. I'm the Innovation Strategist with the Nittany AI Alliance here at Penn State, and I have the pleasure of running the Nittany AI Challenge and working with all the teams that end up going through the competition. If you are not aware of the Nittany AI Challenge, or you just have a passing understanding what it is, talk about it real quick, although that's not what this webinar is about. But the challenge is essentially a competition that we run as a unit here at Penn State to provide engagement opportunities for students of diverse skill sets to learn about and utilize and apply artificial intelligence to the problems we face in the world. In particular, we focus in on AI for good, which is in four areas of interest: health, education, the environment, and humanitarianism. Um, Throughout the competition, which is a total of an 8-month journey with us, there are $50,000 in awards, prizes that are offered to teams as you move through the various stages. It starts off, as you see at the bottom here, Friday, January 29th, when ideas are due. And then it moves all the way through building a prototype, and then eventually building a minimal viable product that is pitched in front of a group of reviewers for a prize pool of $25,000 that remains at the end of the competition. If you are interested in more information about the challenge itself, you can go to nittanyai.psu.edu/challenge, and you can find out all the details about it, including terms and conditions and all those types of things. Or you can feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in the chat, but it is baz122@psu.edu. And it's in the chat right now. What we are here to talk about today, though, or tonight, is this very first stage of the competition. So as you see, there are 3 stages, but 4 if you split up the MVP phase, that start with this idea phase right now, the formation and validation of your idea, and then eventually the submission of a proposal to us. Then you move into building a prototype and then building an MVP and then pitching it as I described. But right now, arguably, we're in the most important part of the challenge, because this is the point when you're coming up with your ideas and you are validating those ideas, and you are essentially pointing yourself in the direction you're going to be walking in for the remainder of the competition. This is the time where you decide what your trajectory is. And so it is critical that you put some time and effort into those ideas. Developing the idea is important, and it is not a stringent process that you have to go through. And developing your idea and actually coming up with the exact idea you have and that you submit into the challenge, I'm not going to get into here tonight. But what I will say is that the most important thing in my mind that you do for developing your idea itself, the idea that you're eventually going to validate, that we'll talk about in a minute, but the most important thing for developing your idea is to follow your why. Find that thing that is your passion. Find that thing that gets you excited. Find that thing, that challenge we face in the world that gets you a little frustrated, that gets you worked up, that inspires you to find a solution. Because as I said, this is a journey. This is not a hackathon. This is not 24 hours. And you have to have motivation to continue pursuing this idea. And if you choose something in the very beginning that you're only have tepid interest in, then you're going to struggle at times to work in that evening to code your solution, to have that extra meeting with your team on a weekend evening or something of the sort. Um, you've got to find your why. If you've never watched or if you've never heard of a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek, I highly recommend that you look him up on YouTube. And there's a video that's called, I believe, Starting with Why. It is something that I deeply, deeply believe in. Uh, but the first step in this whole process is finding your why, finding that thing that inspires you, and then coming up with some ideas around it. And maybe the ideas come from doing some Google searches about that thing that you're passionate about. See what people are talking about, see what kinds of solutions already exist, and use that as a basis to come up with your idea or ideas. I should say that within the Nittany AI Challenge, at the first phase, you can submit more than one idea if you have them. I highly recommend that you put the time into one or two ideas and really think them through rather than just throwing everything at the wall and seeing if something sticks. Um, but if you have the time and you have the ambition, you are more than welcome to submit more than one idea. But the thing is, once you've developed that initial idea, that sense of what you're going to do, um, now you need to validate it. And this is a step that many people end up skipping to their detriment, because you can have something that you're passionate about, and you can have what you think is a solution to that challenge that you're passionate about. But we don't always know. Most of us are not subject matter experts in the field that you're going to be developing in within the challenge. Let's say, for instance, you read a news article about human trafficking, which is a significant problem in this world. There was just a news story the other day about a group of individuals that were found in someone's basement that were being human trafficked, and one of them got loose and contacted the authorities and found this whole smuggling ring. Say that's something that really gets you, that you are inspired to create solutions or to that challenge. You can easily come up with an idea that either has already been done or simply does not work because you are not an expert in human trafficking. Maybe you are, but most of you probably are not. So what you have to do is, once you find your passion, once you find that thing that motivates you, now you've got to validate that idea. And there's a process to this. Developing your initial idea is more about passion. It's more about self-discovery. It's more about thinking through the things that inspire you. Validating your idea is a process and steps that you can go through. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So what are those key steps? What are those things that you do to validate your idea? The first and most important thing is market research. Now, if you're in the College of Business, you may know about market research. And if you are in some other fields in the social sciences, perhaps you know about environmental scans and the like that are adjacent to market research. But market research is basically, particularly within the context of the challenge, is basically this idea of looking out into the world and seeing what's already there. Understanding the context for this solution that you're going to create. So say, for instance, let's continue with our example of human trafficking. Really important thing to address here in this world. So let's assume that you're not an expert in human trafficking, and it's something that you're passionate about, but you don't have a ton of expertise in. Well, what do? Well, you take your group that you've started to put together as a team, which we'll talk about that in a couple minutes, forming a team. But you take your team, or you as an individual, start to do some basic research. For the challenge, it's probably going to be a whole lot of Googling. So break out your Google foo muscles and start doing more and more sophisticated searches and snowball searches within Google to find more information about this topic. Do things such as searching human trafficking AI solutions and see what's being done there. Do human trafficking artificial intelligence, human trafficking machine learning. Look at the articles, see what other articles those articles reference. Look for scholarly publications. Look at the references in those publications and do some snowball searching to look through those publications. Um, you're not writing a dissertation. You don't have to spend a year doing this type of research, but a good couple afternoons or days looking through some of this information can provide you with context for this challenge that you want to address and can possibly inspire some ideas for solutions. And very importantly, can head off certain directions that would be a mistake to go down because either you find out that they have been fully explored already, or you find out that the solution that you think would work is actually kind of naive and is not addressing the actual problem. This is what a little bit of internet searching can do and help you with. And it will help you to also understand some of the terminology, might help you in finding some of the data sets that will be necessary for supporting any sort of artificial intelligence solution you're exploring. Um, and it will give you an idea of who you may be able to talk to get additional information or to bounce ideas off of. The next step in the process, after you've done some research and you've kind of gotten your head around the problem a little bit, again, you're not an expert, but you've got a better understanding of what's going on and what the potential solutions may be. Now, one of the things that I encourage teams to do is to follow what's called design thinking processes. If you're not familiar with design thinking, you can Google search that. There's a nice Wikipedia page, and there are a bunch of companies that have a ton of free materials about design thinking. We're not going to go too deep into that, but we're going to take one of the techniques of design that's used within design thinking and apply it here, which is creating personas. Now, what this means when you create a persona for trying to validate an idea, what you're doing is you're writing you're making up individuals that would be users of your tool or would be beneficiaries of your tool. And what you do is you give them a name. Sometimes you even create a little picture of them, and you give them a name and you give them a little bit of background. So let's say, again, with our example of human trafficking, let's say you create a profile for a law enforcement officer, somebody who works in human trafficking and in interrupting human trafficking and tracking it and anticipating where some of those trade routes are for human trafficking. And you create a persona for this individual. Where do they work? What do they do day to day? What is their biggest problem? And you create these personas by using some of that information that you just gained within the market research process. And you create a persona around this individual. And what that does is it helps you to understand and put yourself in the shoes of an individual that would be using the tool that you will eventually build. This is very, very useful for understanding what the tool has to look like and what it should be doing. Not all the bells and whistles, but what is the core functionality of whatever you might build? What is the core functionality necessary to have a tool that is actually aligned with the real challenges being faced? So you don't just create one persona, you create 3, 4, 5 of them. And kind of put them together and think through those personas and how they would use or what they would need out of the tool that you're planning to build. Once you've done that, combined with the market research, now you've got a pretty solid understanding of what this thing is that you're building and how it might be used. You now have kind of fleshed out this solution that you're going to be proposing to us to fund. But that's not where it ends, because so far what you've done is you've used yourself, a self-identified non-expert in these areas, to do the research, and to think up a solution. The next step, very importantly, is to talk to experts. In particular, look at those personas you created. Are there any individuals that you could actually find and talk to that fit those personas? So in our example, we created our first persona related to a law enforcement, an individual in law enforcement. Well, are there any law enforcement individuals that work in human trafficking that you could reach out to and talk to and throw your idea at and say, what do you think about this idea? And get their feedback. This is you'll notice all bold. I'm yelling in this bullet point. Talk to experts. And hopefully also see about bringing them on as an advisor for your team or a mentor even for your team. This is invaluable because throughout this process, you're going to hit walls. You're going to run into areas where you either don't have the data that you need, or you don't understand the data that you do have, or you're trying to create a user interface and you don't know what to do. You don't know what the expectations would be. Or even worse, you make an assumption that you didn't know was an assumption, and it's an erroneous assumption. These individuals who live and breathe these domains, these areas of expertise, they can save you a tremendous amount of work and can help you out significantly. Set the challenge aside for a second. They are also great individuals to build your network. If this is something you're passionate about, these are the individuals that can help you find employment when you get close or internships as you get closer to graduation. So it is fantastic to start developing relationships within the context of a challenge like this right now, early on. So talk to experts. Now, one of the things that I often hear is, Brad, I have no idea where to find these experts. I have no idea who to reach out to or even what to say to them. That is something that I can help with. Depending on what challenge you're trying to address, I most likely have someone already in my network that can help you. And if I don't, I know someone who knows someone that can help you. So first, go out, try to find someone on your own who might be able to help you out. At the same time, email me, tell me what your idea is, and let me help you find that individual that might be able to help. And the most important step for doing that, to kind of get on my radar and let me know what you're doing, can either be emailing me or, very importantly, submitting your idea into our Teams tool that we're going to be talking about in just a couple minutes. We'll get back to that. But most important, talk to experts. Find them, reach out to them, and talk to them. You are all Penn State students. If you're not a Penn State student, you're not eligible to be part of this competition. So you are all Penn State students. We have a wealth of expertise here at the university. We would be hard pressed to find an area where we did not have an expert on staff somewhere across our university that could help you out. So look for them. Let me help you look for them. And most importantly, be proactive and reach out to them. Now, once you've talked to them, you've done your market research, you got a better idea what's going on, you created personas, you know what kinds of people that you're going to be building for. You've talked to some experts and you've validated some of that stuff that you've figured out. Now, after you've gotten all that information, go back and take another look at that idea that you have. Possibly, and I'd encourage you to, possibly you've already written your idea up and you kind of have a framework for it. At the very least, you have kind of an outline of what your idea is. Go back at it and look at it with fresh eyes and see if you need to refine some things or if you need to go a completely different direction. And iterate on that idea. The first idea you come up with is probably not that great. That will be true for your entire life. It is true for me, I know, on a regular basis. When I come up with a great new idea or what I think is a phenomenal idea, when I look at it after its 15th iteration, I look back on that first idea and I go, wow, that was a stinker. It was a good start, but that was not the idea. This 15th iteration, that's the idea. That's the thing that's going to be of value. So refine your idea, go back through it, and maybe start going through this whole process again. Refine your idea, go back through, validate that through some market research, go back and talk to your expert, look at your personas and see if that new idea aligns. Go through this process again and again until you think you've got that perfect idea to submit. One other thing that I will recommend and say to you is that in finding those subject matter experts, you want to try as much as you can not to have that be a one and done type situation where you reach out to them, talk to them once, and it's all finished. Now, that may be necessary at times, particularly in some areas. I know this is true in the medical field right now. If you're going into one of our health challenges, um, they're very, very busy because of COVID. So you're going to have a lot of trouble getting a lot of their time. But in many other areas, you can find individuals that might be willing to meet with you once a month throughout the process. I would highly encourage you to ask them for letters of support. This is not a big ask. And in fact, we have some templates for letters of support that we have up on the website. You can find that under the challenge materials, or you can reach out to me directly and I can give those to you. They're very basic, very short, basically saying, hey, I'm an expert and I think this is a good idea and I'm willing to meet with this team and help them out. And that letter of support can then be attached to your submission to the challenge. And I will tell you, those letters of support are gold for making it through. Um, we struggle quite a bit with moving ideas through that don't have some sort of subject matter expert attached to the team. Because without that subject matter expert, we don't know that what you are proposing is going to be of value. That letter of support is your ticket to us knowing this is an idea of value because an expert has said it is. So once you've kind of gone through that process, or as you're going through that process, I also want to highlight the importance of building your team, because your team is more than just the group of individuals that will help you develop your solution. As I've mentioned, this is a team challenge. It is intended to have individuals of diverse skill sets in it. Not everybody should be a coder or a computer science individual or a statistician or a data scientist. You need individuals who are in marketing. You need people who can run projects. You need people who can communicate ideas. And what's also important in there in building a diverse team is you get a diversity of opinions and points of view that can be a great help in validating your idea. Because if you get 5 people together that all think the same, you're going to all fall into the same pitfalls. If you get 5 people that think differently, have different perspectives, you're going to check each other and you're going to help each other, because each individual will fall into a different pitfall and you'll be able to lift each other out of those and move forward. So if building a team is so important, how do we help you? Well, we created a tool to do exactly this because of how important building a team is. If you have not already, I highly recommend you go to nittanyai.psu.edu/teams. And when you go there, you'll sign in using your Penn State login, your Penn State credentials. And the first thing you'll do is create a really quick profile for yourself. What are your skill sets? What are your interests? Then you will have the opportunity to submit your idea, the idea that you have for entering into the challenge. Now, this is just the beginning. This is not a submission. Submission comes in January. But this is the opportunity to get the framework of your idea put into the tool and can help to attract other individuals that might have some expertise in the area that you're working in, might have some experience in actually building solutions related to that thing. So the team tool can be invaluable in helping you to validate your idea or find the diverse points of view you need to help you validate an idea. It also puts you on my radar. So when I see your idea in the Teams tool, I will begin the process of trying to find people to help you and reaching out to you to say, hey, great idea. I have Dr. Smith over here that would love to work with you because they are a subject matter expert in human trafficking, and I can help connect you up with those individuals. In addition, we have a partnership with a large number of nonprofits throughout Pennsylvania that are doing work in the humanitarianism space, as well as the health space, as well as the environment space, uh, and education space. And these are individuals that are looking to work with teams and interested in working with teams. And those types of partnerships can bring data, can bring opportunities to validate your ideas, can bring subject matter experts to your team. So getting your idea into the team tool is extremely important for helping me make those connections for you and helping you move forward within the challenge. So with that, that's kind of the whole of the validating your idea presentation. I will end this by saying I'm here for you. My job is to make certain that every single team succeeds. Essentially, my job is to make certain that every single team that submits into the challenge makes it all the way to the MVP phase and wins every penny in the competition. Obviously, I'm not going to succeed on all those, but I will give it my best, and I will do everything I can to help you out. Ask anyone who's been through the challenge before, and hopefully they will say that same thing. Um, I am an ally for you, but I cannot help you if you don't reach out to me, if you don't engage me. So please do so. If I found out that you hesitated because you thought you'd be bothering me or something of the sort, I'd honestly be offended. So please reach out to me, ask for help, see if I can point you in any directions for validating your idea, and use the steps that I just identified throughout this presentation to do some of this work on your own and to make certain that your solution is tied to a real problem, that it really addresses the core challenges that we face in this world. So with that, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at baz122@psu.edu or go to our website at nittanyai.psu.edu/challenge. Thanks, and have a great night.